Hello and welcome to What the Fuck Am I Reading? So since we last spoke, I finished a total of 5 books. I think so. I haven't really been reading that much lately, but I'm trying my best, you know. You know what? Without further ado, let's just get started with the books. Because there have been like some really great gems in here. So the first one that I finished was Mikey 7, which is a sci-fi standalone that I've been really wanting to read since a long time. I wasn't able to get an ARC because it was UK exclusive. Fucking suck. But I finally read it when it came out. I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook is great. I highly recommend it. But yeah, it's a super quick short story. Basically, you're going to follow not Mikey, Mickey, sorry. The thing is, he is an expendable, meaning that every time he dies, a clone of himself is made and he's back to life. So he gets the most dangerous jobs in this colony, basically. So we're going to follow him around because one day he is supposedly dead, but when he comes back to base, they already have Mickey 8 out of the genetic closet. Can we call it something like that? Genetic printer. And they have to just like keep it quiet because there was this case with this guy that copied himself and he lives with his clones. Very weird. Some touches here and there. It's a very humorous book, so if you like humor sci-fi, going to love this probably. But yeah, overall, I highly recommend it. It was a super like nice, enjoyable ride. Basically, there's nothing like transcendent about it. It's just a super fun time. So overall, I gave it 4 stars. Some things here and there, I was just like, okay. Overall, I had a great time reading it. I binge read this, I don't know, in 2 days or so. So super good. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a very like quick sci-fi read that, you know, wash everything away and just start another like heavy fantasy book or a heavy sci-fi book in general. Probably going to love Mikey 7. So then I also listened to the audiobook of Gunmetal Gods. I've been really craving to reading this one because a lot of my booktube friends have been reading it lately and really liking it. And I have to say that I agree. I agree with most of it. Let me tell you right out of the bat, I give it 4 stars. Super good in general. Dark fantasy, amazing. Most of my reads were dark fantasy this month. I know. The thing is, there's like a couple of things that I was really on board with. It's weird because I really liked it overall, but I'm going to nitpick here, I think. I felt like every single POV, they were all male by the way, but every single POV was a man with a daughter and they had a weird relationship with their daughter. It's weird. I only felt like the normal one was the one of the shard, but still, almost all of them were just like very obsessed with their daughters or wanting revenge, and they could only think about their daughters. It's very weird. Like, I don't know. I just never noticed this before, so I don't know if this is right or not. I don't know. It's just a very weird nitpick that I had with this book, but the rest was fantastic. Loved the mythology in the whole story. It's very reminiscent of the Crusades, of course. This is basically a dark fantasy book that is said of following these 2 sides. One of them is 100% inspired by the Christians, and one is the Ottomans. I really liked it. It's also around the conquer of this city. The formula reminded me a bit of The Grace of Kings with Mata and Kuni. Like that type of back and forth reminded me a lot of that. But my favorite part, the darkness in general. There's a scene where a couple of characters are in a boat and they see this angel. The angels here are not like celestial angels. They're very weird beings with feathers and a lot of eyes, which is apparently, for what I know, the actual depiction of angels. I love that part. That was fucking great. Also, walking through hell as a passage. Love that trope in every single book that it appears. I love that. Some of the reveals were also great. I'm really looking forward to reading the second book. But yeah, only that very weird thing. I don't know. It just stuck with me for some reason that I just don't understand. It was just like weird. And let's not talk about that scene. If you have read it, you know the scene. Let's just not talk about that. Let's just not talk about that. But yeah, overall I gave it 4 stars. It was great. If you're looking for a dark fantasy book, very brutal, very gritty, with great like mythology in general, highly recommend this one. Then, because that was a lot, it's also very long, by the way, but I read Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, which is one of my most anticipated releases for this year. This is a sci-fi horror. It was supposed to be a sci-fi horror. Let me tell you something. This reminded me so much of Ghost Ship. The movie, I love this movie, by the way. It's one of my favorite ones. It's just so cheesy, but I love it, and the ending is fucking great. I also have like the OST on my car. I just love it. But basically, in this one, you're going to follow a salvage crew, and they come across this abandoned ship, and it turns out to be the Aurora. Was it the Aurora? Yeah, the Aurora, which was like a luxury type of ship that went missing several years before, and no one knew what happened. Basically, they boarded, and weird shit started happening. Love it. It had a good explanation, that part I really liked, but there are some fantastical elements here that I just don't love. I've said it a million times, but I'm very weird with science fantasy. I do like science fantasy, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for me. So in this time around, I liked it overall, but so those elements, weird for me. But still, I really liked it. It was a fun time. More thrillery than horror in general, but it does suffer with this feeling of that whenever everything is resolved, it just loses a little bit of like its charm, you know? It's very complicated in general, but being able to do that, having the audience still being interested after the reveal is very hard, very, very hard. But yeah, I actually really liked it. It was very enjoyable. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, but still, probably reread it just out of pure joy, like rewatching Ghost Ship every single time that I can. But yeah, I really like that space. I also gave it 4 stars. It was great if you're looking for a horror time. Highly recommend this one. But yeah, more psychological thriller. That's what I was looking for. Psychological thriller than pure horror, because there's barely any gore in it. Also, a few like horror sequences, but very psychological thriller, which is actually a genre that I fucking adore. So if you have psychological thrillers, recommend me, please do, because I love those. Then the next one that I read was Winds of Strife by Uji Goodman, and I actually really love this. I know he'll be watching this, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, because I will actually be doing like a full video review with several of the other published books that I'm reading this month, and I want to just tackle everything because I love the magic system in this book. It was so good. It's called Prosperity, and basically it's about feeling something and making it real. Like power comes from emotions. Oh, there's even like a part where you can just kind of pretend but make it logical. It's so complicated, but I finally have my physical copy and I will be able to just do the review better, because some names because I listened to it, some names I had no idea how to spell and I just don't remember all the names, but it was great. It was great. In this one, you're basically going to follow a witch hunter knight, and the thing is, his family was killed because they were witches. He was presumed dead, but you know what? He decided to infiltrate the witch hunters and take them from within. And it's very dark, like the topics are very dark, but the tone of the novel is not that dark. So if you're looking for just like getting your tiptoes into dark fantasy, you're probably going to be fine with this. Topics are dark, but the tone is very like more like fantasy in general than dark fantasy. You don't feel like hopeless every single time or very depressed. Even though that night sometimes very depressing. But yeah, in general, I actually love this. I really want to read a book too. Apparently, looking forward to 2023. But yeah, this was fantastic. I will talk about this one much in depth in my review coming out next week. But yeah, I basically gave it 4.5. Fantastic. I really liked it in general. Also, very moral, great characters. So if you love that, you're going to be so happy in this world. And the last book that I read was How We Go in the Dark. Whoa, this book was depressing. Jesus Christ. This is a science fiction book that it feels mostly like a collection of short stories that has like an intertwining thread than a novel on itself. It reminded me a lot of Station 11. Like, I agree with the tagline for this. Like, if you like Station 11, you're going to really like this. And I think like the other way around too. Though I have to say this one is more science fiction towards the end than Station 11 ever was. So probably going to like this. But the main premise is that a virus was released in the Arctic and took Earth all over. Children were getting sick. Everything went to shit, basically. It's just very depressing in general. Though I have to say it gets more science fiction-y the more you read it, but it gave me the same feeling as Nye, the book that I read for SPFSC this year, because it's mostly about experiencing it. Like, everything is about experience in this book. You're not going to get like a conclusion, a plot twist, or anything like that. It's just about tagging along with these characters and how they are basically experimenting all of this, which is a trope that I actually, well, not a trope, but a choice of narration and of novel style that I actually really like, and I found myself enjoying it more and more, because this year I read Station 11, quite enjoyed it. Night, quite enjoyed it. Actually really love that book. And this one I actually also really liked, gave it 4 stars. But I have to say this is the most depressing one out of the bunch. I am mild, but still, I really liked it. If you're looking for a more contemporary sci-fi type of read, 100% would recommend How We Go in the Dark. Some chapters were fucking amazing. I love like some science fiction touches. Like, for example, children were dying, so they decided to make like a park for them to just die in happiness. It's so dark. It's super dark, but I actually really liked it. So yeah, highly recommend this one. So yeah, those were basically all the books that I read during this last 2 weeks, basically. But please, have you finished any books this week? Just let me know in the comments below. I'm currently reading Beyond Redemption and finishing An Alternate Village Green, which I'm very much loving. The last one, they're both pretty good, dark fantasy. But yeah, as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.